They don't call it agriculture for nothing,
Oh,
Peter.
interesting. I like that.
Okay?
Yeah.
There's a culture that goes along with doing that kind of work. It's hard work.
It is hard
right?
work. Yeah.
And it's dangerous. I mean, the farm accidents and so on that happen, it's not, you're going to work hard.
Yeah.
Morning, noon, and night. But they love it.
From barns to big towns, it's the Peter Byck Show, Season 1. When you stand on healthy soil, there's a universe beneath your feet. Want to make sure you never miss an update? Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be the first to know when a new episode arrives. Our guest this week is Janice Swanson, an animal welfare specialist who teaches companies big and small on how best to treat our livestock on farms and ranches. Janice came up in a male-dominated world of agricultural research, and her theories soon became the best way to do things. It was a delight to film Janice in action with farmers in our docuseries Roots So Deep, and even more so to speak with her again for this podcast. So welcome to the Peter Byck Show.
I'm pleased to be here.
Nice to have you, Janice.
Thank
you
you
for being here. So you and I met as a result of Jason Roundtree
Yes.
bringing us together. And the way Jason Roundtree spoke about you, I actually found the footage. He's talking about you in our second team meeting. We filmed the team meeting.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I've got this advisor. I think that's what he called you. Would you have been his advisor in 2014?
Well, I was his chair, his department chair. So
Yeah.
Lots of mentoring goes on when you're a department chair.
And so he basically said, we've got this woman in our department. She was leading a department at Kansas State as like the only woman in the whole place, and she's a badass.
Yeah. Well, there were other women by the time I was leading the department there. But when I got there at first, there was only one other woman that was on faculty there. And they had not really had a department head that was a woman.
And where's there? Where
Kansas State University.
And what was your focus then?
Well, my focus was really, I did teaching, I worked on applied research and also a lot of outreach there and extension work.
Focused
And
on?
behavior, animal behavior and welfare, and focused primarily on livestock.
Okay, so you've been on animal behavior and welfare the whole career of your whole academic career?
That's my training. My disciplinary training is in animal behavior with a focus on the behavior and welfare of farm animals. There's a discipline of animal behavior, and then there's also the discipline of animal welfare science, but it's an integrative discipline. So people like me in animal behavior actually contribute to other people from other disciplines solving these problems of animal welfare, particularly with livestock.
So were you raised on a farm? Were you raised with animals?
No, I was raised in a farming community.
Okay.
And yes, we did have animals. We had horses,
Mhm.
right? I was a horse nut growing up, right? But my brothers had worked with beef cattle and so on. And my father was an agriculturalist. He was in the Cooperative Extension Service. And so he worked a lot with livestock producers. And when I was a kid, you could still do this, Peter. You and I could not do this anymore. He could get a state car, right? He was with, at that time, he was with Pennsylvania State Cooperative Extension Service. So he's part of Penn State. And he'd plop one of us in the car, because a lot of times he made farm visits over the weekends. So when we were in school, he'd plop one of us in the farm. We'd go out with him on the farm visits. And it was so cool. And where we lived in Pennsylvania, there was a large Pennsylvania Dutch community and Amish community and things like that. So it really gave me an exposure to people who were doing farming for a living. I also had my best friend when I was growing up. She lived on a dairy farm. And so to get her off of work, especially when we hit our teens, to get her off of work, I would go and help milk cows, be up there shoveling poop.
Work had to be done, so you're doing it.
It had to be done feeding cows, so we could get her off, and then we'd get in the car and we'd take off, right? So, but I really got that exposure from the farming community. By living within a farming community, even though we had horses and we had some land and we did things like that. But
you knew what treating an animal well felt like.
Yes, I did. My father actually was part of a very large concerted effort to stop the inhumane trucking of horses out of New Holland, Pennsylvania, there were 2 slaughter plants in Connecticut, and I might mention my father was also a faculty at University of Connecticut. In the end of his career, that's where he was. So we all moved to Connecticut from Pennsylvania. But he had a student who worked for Connecticut Humane, a former student. And the student talked to him about what they were seeing. There were 2 horse slaughter plants in Connecticut at the time, what they were seeing coming in. They were being called in, and horses were hung up over wheel well. They're being actually trucked in cattle trucks that really didn't have the clearance of the head or anything like that for horses. And so they staked out the New Holland plant in Pennsylvania, took pictures, everything. And it was, they could no longer use that kind of trucking. So they set guidelines for that.
What are people slaughtering horses for? Just
a lot of them were going to the French markets in Canada and also overseas. But part of it is it's not easy to dispose of a dead horse. Right?
Yeah, it's big
You have
animal.
to bring in big equipment, you have to do, and so it was one place where people could go when their horse was at the end of life, and horses live a long time, that they could take them and they would be, and the USDA would also monitor these plants as well, right? So they had to be, they used the humane type of methods to kill the horses as they did cattle and any other thing. So it was hard to do, but people would take their horses there because it was so expensive to try to.
But shipping them so poorly. So that you're seeing animal mistreatment right there.
Yeah, I saw that from a young age. I think I was a teenager when I went with him on.
Did that have an impression on you?
Yes, it did. I was horrified. And I was really pleased. I think the Massachusetts SPCA gave my dad a big award, the Arabian Horse Association did, and so on. But I was impressed by the work that he did. And he was a big old Montana cowboy, right? But he had a soft heart. It was like, this shouldn't happen to an animal. No animal should be treated this way.
Cowboys can have soft hearts.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
And so it was actually when I landed at the University of Maryland where you had these traditional types of courses of study within the animal sciences department, and behavior wasn't one of them at that time. There were very few places that
People
were
just
teaching.
weren't looking at it.
No, not with domestic animals. Now, you could go over to the biology department and you'd have a course in ethology or something happening there. So if you're out looking at wild animals and birds. And consequently, at the same time, the field of applied ethology was blooming over in the UK, and people got trained.
And that's still wild animals at that point, studying wild animals?
No, it was a focus. It was a group of veterinarians, actually, who saw a need for having this type of research happening with domestic animals as well. They saw problems with the animals because, of course, they were treating them. And, of course, they were also undergoing this transformation with the 5 freedoms and so on over in the UK.
5 freedoms?
Yeah, it was precipitated by Ruth Harrison, who wrote a book called Animal Machines, and this was back in the 1960s.
Okay.
And it was back at the time where highly intensive systems they came into vogue with regard
feedlots and things like that. Or?
Yeah, like the housing of pigs and so on suddenly became more dense and more confined.
More like a machine, more industrial.
Well, that's what she was drawing this analogy to factories. In fact, that's where animal factories, started coming into play. Right? It's a factory. We go from here to here and so on, and the public was really incensed by this. And so the UK put together this commission, and it was run by a physiologist. I think his first name was Roger Bramble. It's called the Bramble Report.
Okay. And
they came out and they first studied, what kind of space the animal should need. And later that transformed into these 5 freedoms. Freedom from fear and distress, freedom to have normal behavior, access to one of their own kind, freedom for shelter, freedom for food and good nutrition, freedom from disease and injury, and so on.
Got it.
So they had just the basic elements, and it was called the 5 freedoms, and that really changed the way people started looking at farm animals in themselves. And so this whole field of applied ethology developed from that.
Got it.
And so it's the same principles as ethology, which is really studying animals, the Jane Goodall type of study of chimps in the wild, which she also transformed to looking at them in zoos. to us looking at domesticated animals in the way that they're managed by human beings.
Got it.
And how does that change their behavior? So we're not only looking at what's happened with these animals in a approximate sense, what's going on with them now, but also understanding their natural history, their evolutionary biology, their behavior, and so on. What do they actually really need in there? It's not just a matter of keeping them alive till they grow out. What do we need to provide for them?
Yep.
So this whole field has developed, and that's where your animal welfare audits have come in, your assessments, and so on.
Where have you seen, in cattle, where have you seen animals treated the best? Like, where have you gone, now that looks like a nice way to treat animals? Because that's a big issue for
I think
vegans,
we saw
right?
that on the project
So you saw
that we did, multi-adaptive grazing.
Yeah.
Yes. There are a couple of those beef farms that we were at that I thought they had superior welfare on those farms. You could see it. The way that the farmers thought about their animals, thought about their land, thought about the treatment. And the other thing is that they were using the best practices. We typically lay out best practices for the management of animals. If you're going to manage animals, you need to know how to treat them. You need to know what they need, and so on. And so there's ways they can do that by keeping records on their health, by making sure they get vaccinations, they have a good vet.
only if they need them.
Only if they need them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. We saw a lot of, and it depends regionally where they are, right? And there are different needs in different regions of the country because there are different types
But
of
people
exposures.
use antibiotics just for weight gain. I know
Well,
I've just
they're not
conflated
allowed to do that
antibiotics.
anymore.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But that has been done in the past.
Yeah. Well, it was basically discovered accidentally.
In the 50s, right?
Yeah. And so it was an accidental discovery, and then people felt, well, if we give them, a pre-therapeutic dose,
Right.
that will also get this side benefit and protect them. But
And they had no clue that they were creating antibiotic resistance.
right, but it's the same with people, right?
Right.
And the prescription of antibiotics to people.
Yeah.
So there's been abuse that everybody can share in the use of antibiotics. But and nowadays it's one reason why you have this established vet-client-patient relationship now, because that's how they report the use of that out.
Got it.
But you also have a lot of people focused on the preemptive type of care that you give so that you don't get yourself into health problems.
Well, that's what we see.
So preventative care is a big deal.
Yeah, that's what we see with the farmers who grazing adaptively. They're seeing their animals every day.
Right.
They can tell who's sick right away. It's not like they find out a week later. And they all say that their vet costs have gone down to 10% of what they were. Like, that's a consistent number I've heard on all sorts of farms.
And a lot of it also has to do is that they're not standing in one spot the whole time, right?
Yeah.
So they get to retire pastures. They can help break the parasite cycles. They can help do a lot of things as they move those animals around.
Yeah.
So these best practices, both in grazing and in management and health of animals, they work together in a synergistic way. And there's some people that are doing more of one and less of the other, and you really have to have them come together in an integrative way. And I saw ranchers on that project that did that well.
We'll be right back. Hi everyone, it's Peter. If you like what you're hearing and want to learn more, please check out our docuseries, Roots So Deep, You Can See the Devil Down There. It's streaming at rootsodeep.org. Welcome back to the show.
Now, you had a big hand in McDonald's reassessing how they treated how the chickens were treated in their whole supply chain, all the people that supplied chicken nugget materials.
Yeah, we ran a very big project because there were a lot of conversations going on nationally about whether egg producers should switch conventional cage production to cage-free or something in between. And so the purpose of this project was to try to give some answers more quickly. And it was interesting because it was really a public-private funded partnership between a group of people in the private industry who were interested in getting some answers to these questions and understanding what would it mean for egg producers in the United States to make this transition to cage-free production or enriched colony at that time production as well.
Enriched colony? What's that mean? Is that
What
sort
it
of
is
on the way?
basically it's still a caged production environment, except that they have added things for the hens that they naturally desire. So they had a place that they could perform dust bathing and scratching behavior. They had provide a nest in that environment, and they provide perches. There's more room within these cages because, of course, they've got more furnishings in there for the animals to interact with. So they're quite a bit larger. You still had, about 60 hens or so in that environment.
And it's still enclosed.
It's still
there's
enclosed.
still no
It's
sky.
still a cage.
Yeah.
Which is the problem, right?
Yeah.
For most people, from a ethical and social standpoint, the objection was to animals having these limits, right?
Yeah.
So it was still a caged environment. Now, interesting enough, Canada still allows the what we call enriched colony cages, because they sort of preserve the type of cleanliness, chickens off the floor from disease, and so types of benefits for hens, but at the same time accommodates natural behaviors. But really, what we learned from this project, we learned a lot about those three, and it was very integrative because we had a group working on the environmental aspects of it. We had human health, including ergonomics aspects of going from a conventional cage to a cage-free.
For the people actually getting the eggs.
Yeah, for the people getting the eggs, because
Are they
a
bent
cage-free
over?
environment is very different from a conventional cage. I mean, conventional cage, the animals are there, they're in a small cage, a worker can just look at them. There's not a manipulation, and the eggs come out onto a conveyor belt, and the eggs go here. In a cage-free environment, these hens are loose. They're navigating three-dimensional space, right? They're going up, they're coming down, they're on the floor. It also means that sometimes they don't lay their eggs in their nests. And so workers have to get down underneath these structures that go up that provide them water and nests and things like that, get under there and retrieve the eggs. And that's an extra task. And so if you're looking at commercial production on a daily basis of eggs that are supplying grocery stores and retailers like McDonald's, food QSR units and things like that, you're talking about a large number of eggs that have to come out every day of a system. And that system is more of a niche and specialty egg type of market. There's a place for them, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's pretty hard, I think, in the United States to get that kind of production to go completely over to a commercial scale. But the conversion to cage-free is happening. And there's over 30%, I think almost over 35% of the U.S. flock is now converted.
Do you think that was a consumer-demanded change? Do you think consumers had a strong hand in that?
It's interesting. There's been a lot of work. They do when they go into a voting booth, okay, Peter? Because most of the times, if you have a ballot issue or actually people are arguing in a legislature, and Michigan is a ballot state, for example, that when you word things and you say that, should animals have freedom to, who's not going to vote for that, right?
Yeah.
The problem is walking into the grocery store and they actually buy the product that they asked for.
That costs more.
Because it does, because you have more labor involved, you have the transition, and producers aren't receiving any money to do that, right? The egg producers aren't, they don't get anything. And of course, then you have the retail community that's taking their piece of the pie in between. And the situation over the last few months has been that there's more cage-free eggs that are produced than what people will buy. And so in some cases, the residual cage-free eggs are actually going into caged egg cartons.
Really?
Yeah. So these people who think that you're getting caged eggs and cage-free, that's not the case.
That's
what you're really getting in your caged carton for you guys, even though you're buying because they're cheaper, you might have cage-free eggs in there as well.
That's right.
So it's because that's the only place that they can still get value for those eggs is to put them into in with the caged.
So on this project, you were coupled with the social science team.
Yes.
And so what I was just thinking as you were talking about the animal behavior, treating animals well, do humans who treat animals well do better themselves as well? Are they getting treated better? Like, is that a symbiotic situation where, is it someone who's...
You would like to think that,
Okay.
right?
Just a thought. Just a thought.
I know, and this is totally outside of my area of expertise, but I do know that there's been a lot of studies looking at animal abusers and the connection to abusing people, too.
Yeah.
And American Humane actually was founded on that, just the welfare of children and the welfare of people. And
Together?
yeah, American
The Humane Society.
And no, not Humane Society of the United States, American Humane, which
Okay.
is located in Denver. They're a different organization, but
Okay.
they're one of the oldest humane societies in the United States.
Okay.
They were very involved in breaking up the problems and abuse of carriage horses in New York early
Right.
on.
Okay.
And they also were very involved with regard to the, and we're talking back in the 1800s, early 1900s, in getting the law set up for humane slaughter of animals.
Right. But they also were dealing with child abuse as well?
But they had over the years added child abuse as well. I think it's still part of that. You'd have to look it up. But yeah, they've also looked at the connection between animal abuse and abuse of spouses and I think, domestic violence in particular. And so you'll find some of these houses that are established for women, for example, to come to, they can
Safe
bring the
houses.
pet too.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't want to leave it behind. Because one of the things people do is murder someone's treasured pet. You know, they're beating on them, but then as a sadistic way of doing things. So there's a whole thing in forensics, in veterinary medicine that's centered on that, and looking at those things and establishing these abuse cases. But they make connections with that. You can find published literature on this.
It makes sense. Animal welfare and abused animals in industrial settings is a reason that many people stop eating meat because they don't want to be a part of that system. And I've noticed, and I've had farmers tell me, that when people go and see animals well treated, they actually feel better about eating that farm's produce. Not just anywhere, but that farmer.
Yeah.
And I met a guy recently, he's part of the Bundy family, the family that had all the ranching conflict with the U.S. government. He's starting a whole program called Shake the Hand That Feeds You. And it's about like, know your farmer, do know your farmer, know where your food's coming from.
Yeah, this kind of disconnect is really hard to work with. I mean, I've met some people in agriculture that are absolutely almost phobic about having suburbanites ever come out to their farm. We had a program here actually run by our cooperative extension service
The
called
reverse of what I was...
It was called Breakfast on the Farm. And dairy farmers from all over the state, small, big, and large, open their doors during the summer. We'd have at least one or two farms during the summer that would open their doors and invite anybody who wanted to come. And, people could get food there, they could do whatever, but they could walk every inch of they could go out to the manure lagoon, and there were information signs. It was fabulous. And they did a lot of work on that, and they did surveys. One of our members of our department here did surveys of people when they came in, what they expected, and then when they came out.
Right.
And just having that dialogue was enough to start allaying some of their fears and maybe getting rid of some of the nonsense they might get fed that is incorrect. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't things that go wrong on farms. Certainly there are. But if they're reading online, sometimes they're not always getting the right information.
So many farmers feel like they're being attacked across the board.
They do.
And the farmers, we found, like, we're on a big campaign right now. We've been out on the road since last June, so 10 months.
Yeah.
And we have farmers show up at our screenings, and they're either farmers that are doing adaptive practices or they're curious about it.
Yeah.
But the thing we've heard so consistently is how isolated farmers feel, whether they're whatever practice they're doing. And
they feel they've been stereotyped.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't like that.
No, they don't. But, we have this divisiveness going on in this country that does not help that. It's almost rural versus urban.
Yeah.
And so they're always associated with this very highly conservative rural segment. And many of them are pretty conservative. But there's they're still human beings committed
Yeah.
to producing food for the masses, and they want to at least hear something positive once in a while about them. It's not always your fault. It's like, well, if there's no farmers, how do you get food, right?
Well, one thing that I've noticed is every farmer I've met loves their land.
They're very, they don't call it agriculture for nothing,
Oh,
Peter.
interesting. I like that.
Okay?
Yeah.
There's a culture that goes along with doing that kind of work. It's hard work.
It is hard
right?
work. Yeah.
And it's dangerous. The farm accidents and so on that happen, it's not work that you go into thinking that
Yeah.
you're going to work hard.
Yeah.
Morning, noon, and night. But they love it.
Exactly.
And many of them have grown up in it. And even now, even the newer farmers that are coming, USDA has a new farmer program, a lot of them trying to keep people on the farm because, some people grow up, they have kids, they lived on the farm all their lives, and the first thing the kids don't want to do is be part of the farm.
Right.
And so you have to have people willing to come in and work like that to produce food.
Yeah. One thing you say in the movie that we like so much we put it in the trailer is you were saying farming is an act of peace.
It is. It is. It's interesting. And how I realized this is when I was at Kansas State University, I ran an international program that was within the department. USDA had started it off by funding it, and they had, they have part of a foreign ag service that's within USDA. And so we would bring people over and so on. And there were different places that you would get money, to be able to fund these programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed the International Atomic Energy Commission had funds for this. And I looked at it and I thought, why in the world for farming? Part of their mission is to promote peaceful endeavors, right? So here you have this, segment that's, they're trying to control atomic energy, nuclear energy, and so on. But part of the funding they have to dedicate is to peaceful endeavors, and agriculture is one of them. And I sat back for a minute and I thought, well, yeah. If you looked at things like scorched earth policies, they used to call them in Africa, how do you take over parts of a village?
I mean, like
you
warfare.
Control their, yes.
Yeah.
You burn out the peasant farmers, right? You control the food supply, and people, you subjugate people, right?
Yeah.
You get them to buy in. It used to be called the scorched earth policies.
Yeah.
And so you look at that, and food is such an essential thing for people, right? Food and water. And you think of what wars are made of, right?
Yep.
I need more territory. I need more resources. We've got to take over this because we need that.
Yep.
So to me, agriculture can be a peaceful endeavor. It falls into that category. If you keep people, and you look at the establishment of the United States, and you look at some of the writings of Thomas Jefferson and others, they viewed the farmer as a model citizen, that they're provisioning food. And how do you keep people from uprising and taking over? And you keep them fed, and you keep them healthy, and you put up that, agriculture is a place to be a model citizen. And
we take a line from Jefferson to Lincoln,
right?
Ag universities to Wendell-Berry, right?
Yeah.
We need more farmers.
We do. We need all types of farmers. We do need to have farms and farm communities that are healthy. We have to think of the welfare of those people too. Yeah, things are not accessible. I mean, how many times did we hear from some of our farmers that it's hard to access a veterinarian? Yeah. I know at least 2 of them said, there's nobody in our area. A large animal vet, I have to go all the way up to Kentucky to get one. Or I have to, we have a big promotion now going on to try to train more food animal veterinarians because we need them out
And
there.
doctors are missing in the middle.
Yeah, and
of these rural
doctors,
towns.
medical doctors, clinics, and women who have to give childbirth, where do they go?
Yeah.
So there are, lack of resources for those people out there too.
Yeah.
And even
you
though
feel it when
many
you're
of them have now created health programs for especially if they have people outside of the family that are working for them, they have health programs. They've tried to do the right thing by.
You mean farmers who have people they've hired?
Yes.
They're going to create health care for
yes.
But a lot
the
of the
ones who can afford it, right?
Well, a lot of the farmers every farmer in our study had an off-farm job.
Yeah,
And many of them had that off-farm job, so they had health insurance,
that's right.
which has led me to think, and I'm sure other people have thought it too, what if the Farm Bill had health insurance for farmers?
Well, that would be an interesting thought, wouldn't it? But it depends. It depends on the political dynamic whether you'll ever get that through.
Right.
You create it for farmers, well, why haven't you created it, or you can't maintain it for the rest of the population? It's a real heavy thing to talk about because access to health care is really a
It's
problem.
make or break.
Yeah, my friend who is a dairy farmer, her father was still in the military, right,
he
at
had
that
his
time. And
coverage.
so all summer he was in boot camp somewhere,
Mhm.
and the mother and the kids were all taking care of the farm. And that was probably their source of having health care.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Enjoying the conversation? Well, you'll love our new 4-part docuseries, Roots So Deep You Can See the Devil Down There, which is all about inventive farmers and maverick scientists building a path to soil health and farmer wealth with hooves, heart, and soil. It took us 10 years to make, and you can binge the whole story in an evening. It's streaming now at rootsodeep.org, and use the code JANICE, JANICE, for 10% off. Welcome back.
When we think of rural communities, we think of farmers struggling.
Yeah,
We know farmers have a high rate of suicide of any
Yep.
group in the U.S.
They do.
It's third.
yep. We have a
It's-
whole program here at Michigan State devoted to working with farmers who
Yeah.
are at risk. Yeah.
And finances is a huge part of that.
Yep.
What kind of society, and I'm going to get all soapboxy now, but what kind of society puts the person who's feeding them in this position?
This is one of the drivers for getting big or get out.
How so?
Having enough capital that you can afford to do these things.
Yeah, but when you get really big, you get really big debt too, right?
Yeah, there's a turnover on that. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's a whole different thing, but
Getting
we
big or
keep
get out,
squeezing.
is like get
To-
your farms
yes.
really big.
If they're gonna produce the food
Uh-huh.
for big box stores that we all love, like
Mhm.
Costco and everybody else,
Mhm.
farmers will produce what you want.
Right.
And so there is a whole complex equation that went in to increases of farm size.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers didn't just think overnight that I've got to get bigger.
Right.
It's usually the economic environment that pushes them that way.
Right.
And if they love to farm, then they'll find ways to keep doing it. And if that means I have to buy out the guy next door because he's going under, then I'm going to do that. And it will preserve that agricultural land.
Right. Right.
That's the other thing, is preserving agricultural land and the competition for that agricultural land.
Jerry Hatfield taught me right when we were starting this project that if you thought about profit per acre when thinking about the farmer rather than yield per acre,
Right.
it's a whole different way of looking at it.
Absolutely.
And so that profit per acre, what does a farmer want to make versus the yield, which may be nutrient-dense food, it may not be nutrient-dense food, but profit per acre. Have you thought of that or seen that?
It's not my field of study. I'm not an economist. I've certainly worked with economists.
Yeah.
But what I have seen with the producers I've worked with is their margins are razor thin.
Yeah.
By the time everybody takes a bite out of it, there's not much left. And that's the problem sometimes with wanting to change a whole production system overnight. It can't happen that way.
Right.
Because farmers are rarely compensated for that. They'll do it because they know they need the markets, and if McDonald's or anybody else is asking them to do that, these are things they need to consider. And it's one of the things that we did always talk about. I sit on a number of these scientific advisory committees to some of these food retailers, and it's like, you need to think of how that downward pressure on that system.
Yeah.
If you leave them with pennies, there's not much there to do what you're asking them to do. And you got to look at the economics of this too for the farmer. They have a right to send their kid to college and to feed their own family and to live a decent life too.
Yeah.
And they're not all sitting in limousines with pinstripe suits either. It is a very competitive environment, and it can be pretty hard to swim in it. sometimes.
So they're land wealthy, but the only way they can realize that wealth is if they sell it and it becomes a subdivision.
I know, and that scares me because the more of that land we lose, that was probably one of the treasures of the United States. I mean, even our Native Americans, they recognized what land meant, even though some of them were nomadic, some of them stayed in one place. But land, the land they lived on, the nature of that land, the ecosystem around it were so important.
Yeah.
And you got to preserve those types of things. And I think we're finally coming around to some of that. It's not exploit, exploit, exploit all the time. We're coming around to understanding, yeah, there's a
Huge cost.
huge cost to
Yeah.
this. And it's not infinite. You know, you can't keep doing that into infinity. It's a finite type
Yeah.
of thing. And you can raise the land and
You
never
can
be able to move.
wipe it out.
Yeah, wipe it out.
So I was told that you had retired from your
Just
chair.
retired. Not
your-
from my chair. I've
Okay.
retired from that. You know, probably, what was it, 2018, I retired from doing that.
Okay.
I went back to doing the fun stuff as a faculty member, right?
Which
Working with
is-
students. And,
Okay.
Yes.
And so what are you doing now? Like,
What am I doing now?
you still have your office in this building. here
Yes,
at
I
Michigan
do. I'm
State.
considered an adjunct faculty professor emeritus, which, you know, you'll be one of those one day. Professor emeritus and adjunct professor because I'm still working on two projects. We have one project that's led by a younger faculty member in which we're doing higher ed curriculum and so on, and I'm developing the animal welfare curriculum and the research
To
ethics
teach
curriculum.
agriculture, like,
Well, yeah, it's a program that it's a project, a grant that also includes Oklahoma State University and so on, and it's going to be international in scope. So we have a partner university in South Korea that's engaged in it. That's one thing that I have a small part in it as co-PI. So that was delayed seriously by COVID. So that
now it's happening.
now it's really happening. And then another project is a Department of Energy project where we're looking at grazing beef cattle under solar panels.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm on a steering committee.
We've been
for that.
theorizing about that for a
Yes,
decade.
yeah, and Jason's on this as well.
Is
We're
he?
both on the steering committee of
Okay.
this.
Is
And
it with Silicon Ranch?
yes,
Okay, good.
yes. And
So-
I'm not
so-
going to say. I mean, we're in the early stages.
Here's
of
the
this.
thing. So,
Okay.
so I was talking to a solar company in 2016 when we were fundraising for
Yeah.
the project we worked on. And I'm like, can't you do that? And they said, well, you can, but we have to put more steel into into the things that hold the panels, and we have to put them higher.
Yeah.
And so they've been testing it with sheep, chickens, and there's
oh, yeah,
a lot
the
of
smaller
benefits.
animals. There's a number of benefits.
Here's a really cool benefit to that.
Okay.
When you build giant solar farms, a lot of times the land below the solar panels becomes useless.
We have
And
them here.
And you have to spray weed killer on it, and
Yeah.
it just becomes a desert.
Yep.
When you do agriculture under those panels, you can grow high value crops because they need some shade and sun. You can graze chickens, graze sheep, and when you have growing grass beneath the panels,
Yeah.
it's cooler. And solar panels are more efficient when they're cooler on the backside.
Well, these are some of the things that we're going to be studying. You know,
Yeah.
we again, animal welfare segment to it. So
Yep.
we're looking at making sure that they're safe around cattle.
Shade.
You know, and whether heat's dissipated well enough with
Yep.
a larger animal underneath those panels.
Yep.
And I'm not collecting any data on this. I'm doing a shout out for my colleague, Dr. Lily Edwards Callaway at Colorado State University, which has a great program there. And she's doing the actual data collection with
I'm excited by
the
this.
experimental piece.
Yeah.
But we did mock-ups last year on looking at what a solar panel array would look at and took data on it, so we didn't damage anything. We did mock-ups. And then the real thing will happen.
See, that's
And
the game, right?
I can't say too much about it because it's
I'm-
so preliminary.
I'm catching, but I've
yeah.
I've talked to people about this, so I can say things because I haven't signed anything. But the idea that you have multiple use for the same land,
Yeah.
it's like in no research papers.
Yeah.
There's like no research papers that show cattle grazing and row crop production
Yep,
and all that stuff.
yep.
So all these theories of how much land you need
Yeah.
are limited by their scope. And then you add in regenerative energy production, like you can have
Yeah.
solar you can have wind turbines on grazing land.
Yeah.
And we filmed that in carbonation.
Yeah.
And the cotton farmers in Texas, when the 2011-2012 drought just wiped people out,
Yeah.
they all saved their farms because they had income from the turbines.
So it's very interesting. Consumers Energy, which is a big energy supplier here in Michigan, they're actively working with the agricultural community. And one of the things that was nice when I was chair of the department is that there's a consortium of all the ag producers, everybody from sugar beets to whatever that's produced, vineyards produced. They all get together once a month down in Lansing, all the people representing them, and they talk about these things. And Consumers Energy got up and gave a really nice presentation on how they were working with farmers on wind farms and also solar.
Nice.
They were beginning to look at this. You know, agrivoltaics is a big deal
that's the
right
phrase.
now.
Yep.
I've learned a lot working on this study because of, again, the integration of all these different scientists on this. You know, we have engineers, we have all sorts of people. We've got the soil part going, we've got the animal part going, we've got economics involved. It's just amazing. And then you put all these things together. Again, as you know, these studies are not cheap. Right?
They're not cheap.
They require a lot of labor, a lot of work.
Yep.
But this thing is going, and it's very interesting. So that's the other project that I'm sticking with because I'm very fascinated by all this.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's great because that's like it's using solar energy in many different ways.
yeah.
We talk about the grass being a solar panel.
Yep.
A solar panel is a solar panel, right?
Yep.
And so that to me is, I think when you have all those things happening on the same land, it's just, it's going to.
And you know, the animals are part of that system,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You know, you're studying a system, systems within systems, right? And if you're going to get it right, you need to know what's going on in all those different systems. And so that's been fascinating.
That's good. I like that.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So now you get to work on what you want after so many years of telling people what they had to do, which as an administrator.
I hope I wasn't like that.
No,
but,
I'm not
but
saying
of course,
you were.
you know,
I don't know that.
You come from a university too. And of course, there are expectations and standards that go along. But
all the deans, all the admin folks, I'm in awe of them because their jobs are so hard, in my opinion.
But
they seem
they're part
so
of the dark
hard.
side, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't even say they're part of the. No, I don't actually think that.
Yeah.
I just think, oh my God, I would be so useless in that job. So maybe it's
overwhelming, to say the least, to run a university. I just ran a department.
Yeah.
The higher you go on that scale, the more responsibility that happens, and
the more complaints, and the more.
I have sat back and pretty much said, I don't say much anymore because when you've been in administration, you get a full idea of, and even some parts I'm not so sure of, because the higher up you go, who knows. But it's an awesome responsibility.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And you just have to accept that.
Yeah, I mean, with anything.
You're not going to be everybody's friend. Sometimes you're going to fail.
Right.
Sometimes you'll do a spectacular job of something. It's just really hard. You can't please everybody. And you just try to do the best you can. You try to be honest.
But now you get to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And you've earned it.
I hope so, yeah.
I think you have.
Yeah.
I'm going to vote for that.
Oh.
But thank you for being part of this show. Thank you for being part of our big science team. And thank you for being on the Peter Byck Show.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. I always enjoy talking with you, Peter. It's great.
It's good.
We need to keep up.
Definitely.
Help spread the word. Subscribing and hitting the bell lets the platform know you value these conversations and helps us share new stories and new science with the world. Thank you all for watching. I have so much respect for Janice and her way of looking at the world. She has taught me that farming is an act of peace. Well-fed people tend not to bomb each other. She's also taught me that since they're not making any new land, it's good business for farmers to treat their land with as much care and love as possible. To see our docuseries Roots So Deep, you can see the devil down there. Join us at rootsodeep.org and use the code JANICE, JANICE, for 10% off. You can read our published research and other folks' research on regenerative agriculture at rootsodeep.org under the tab Research. If you would be so kind, please tell one other person about our show. To let us know your feedback, questions, and comments, please email me at peter@rootsodeep.org. And to follow us on social, our handle across the board is @CarbonCowboys. This is Peter Byck for The Peter Byck Show. Be well and be kind.